Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. Okay, yes, I'm thrilled. Thrilled is my word for the season. And I am just so grateful to be able to welcome these two individuals to the show today. Yes, it is the first Wednesday in February, and I wanted it to be special. And I did some research, did a little digging, and found two legends here in Washington, DC, who's been doing triathlons for years and years. And let's just go back to the 80s. What? Yes. So I have with me today a father-son duo, which we call a legacy. Mr. Phil Fenty and Shawn Fenty, welcome to Try Beginner's Luck. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Feel good. Good to be here.
Yes. Okay, so I'm having a little fangirl moment. I know I've never met you, Mr. Phil, but I am I'm curious. You were doing triathlons in the 80s. What was that like?
I did my first one in 1983. It was the first triathlon on the East Coast. We did it out of a high school pool, and we biked around a neighborhood, and then we ran around a neighborhood. It was quite fun, quite amazing. It was new; nobody had done it before, and so I was excited about it.
Wow! And Shawn, for you, you did your first triathlon in the 90s or
That's
early
right.
2000s. Okay.
I followed my younger brother into the sport, who followed my dad in. I had been more of a club bicycle racer for many years. And as I got into my, what they call masters racing, when you're like in your 30s, I found that the cross training from the swimming and the running gave my overall fitness a boost. And my brother was doing triathlons at the time, and he had a bunch of friends that were doing it, and it looked like a lot of fun. And I was at a point in time where, I needed something different, a new challenge. And so, I started doing triathlons. I did my first one as a relay, where I just did the bike portion, and there was a runner and a swimmer. And then I was like, this is a fun scene. I like this, I like the vibe here. And so, I said, let me do this thing. So the big hurdle for me was to learn to swim. At the time, I did not know how to swim. I had never really swam laps or for distance at all. And so I had to get into the pool and figure that out. So.
Wow. So, and I'm assuming your brother, Adrian Fenty, who used to be the mayor of DC, right?
That's right.
Now, Adrian, Shawn, I'm a little disappointed. You could have asked your brother to come on here, but you wanted all the shine. I get it. The oldest child was like, no, I'm not going to invite the younger brother, which is fine. But we definitely have to figure out a way to get all of you guys in here, because I think that's interesting. And I think it's important for triathlon history to see that you have three Black men who did triathlons when triathlon wasn't even popular or, exciting, but you guys were doing it. And you, like myself, Shawn, entered in doing relays, and you was like, this is a whole lot, because it is. So I want to take it back to Dad Fenty. What do they call you, Mr. Phil?
Everybody calls me Phil. That's my name. So Phil works. My grandchildren call me Pop, but mostly everybody else calls me Phil. And I just wanted to add to what you're saying. Our other son also did triathlons too. So there were three sons, myself, and my wife Jan did biathlons. So we were a very athletic family, and everybody participated.
Wow. Have you all done a race together at the same time?
I don't know if we've all been in
Maybe
a
like a
race
5K or
together.
something. Maybe a 5K or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Road racing. Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Okay.
the triathloning, I did one with the youngest son, Jesse, and Adrian when they were 12 and 13 years old, and then a few years ago when we were still doing the races, I did with Shawn and Adrian. I participated in races together, and I would add that the scariest thing for me personally doing triathlon was being in the water at the same time with my sons. It always put a sort of twist in my stomach to know that they were in the water the same time I was.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to put a pin there. And I want to go back to how did you feel get into triathlons? Because again, this is the 80s. No one is doing it. So how did you even know that triathlon was something that you wanted to explore? And what age did you start doing triathlons?
Well, 1983, I would have been 43. And I started out doing them because I got injured running and I hurt my back. And the orthopedist said the only thing I could do would be swim. He found that to be very helpful for the back problem. So I started swimming. I was already a cyclist. So I would bike to the pool and go swim and then bike home. And then when I started running again, I said, wow, and then I heard about the Hawaii triathlon where they did all three things. And when they had one here in Washington, I mean, it was actually in Arlington, Virginia, where I did my first one. And when I heard about it, I got into it just to see what it would be like to do all three things at one time. And I was hooked. I was hooked forever on it. Then it's a fun sport.
Wow. And then you were able to introduce it to your sons at 12 and 13 years old. And then Shawn apparently didn't want to bite the bug until a little bit later, but nonetheless, he bit the bug, which is fine. And I love this story because, so many times we don't see people that look like us doing these sports. And so it can be a little, I won't necessarily say intimidating, but definitely be uncomfortable stepping into spaces where no one looks like you. So you don't necessarily feel comfortable asking questions. You don't feel comfortable relying on other people for information to be if it's true or not true. So what was it like for you, Phil, to do races in the 80s when there was no one else really that looked like you, or not a lot of people that looked like you?
Well, the wonderful thing that happened is in 83, I did a couple in 83. In 84, we opened our store, our running store, but it's part of a franchise, a national franchise, and it's called Fleet Feet. And we opened it as a triathlon store. So we sold swimwear and runwear and some biking clothing, etc. And we specifically opened it as a triathlon store because there were none on the East Coast and no one else had that cachet. And so that was a great way to get into the sport and also to promote it.
Wow. In 1984, you start a store, Fleet Feet Triathlete, right? And
that's correct.
And now, going back to Shawn, it is 2022 and you are still running the same store. What?
Yeah, we celebrated 37 years in 2021 and looking forward to our 38th year, finishing up our 38th year in June 2022. So yeah, when my folks were ready to retire, my wife Kimberly and I, we took on the store, bought the store from them in 2008, and it'll be 14 years for us coming up. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
Now, speaking of, I was introduced to Fleet Feet probably before 2015, but in 2015, I joined the marathon training group, which was really
Okay.
cool because I was going out for my first Marine Corps training group. We were doing the training runs. We would meet up in Adams Morgan at the store, and then we would run. And I successfully completed that marathon. But that's so cool to see the legacy that you all have contributed to in the city of DC, which is very health conscious, is very athletic conscious, and definitely running is a huge extracurricular activity that a lot of the um, the residents participate in.
It's a great city for running. It's a great city for running and cycling and swimming. It's a very athletic city. I mean, generally 11 months of the year, you can go out and cycle. And certainly we have plenty of pools. And the running in Washington, you can run in Rock Creek Park, you can run on horse trails, you can run through the city. It's very friendly to athletes of all kinds. I mean, you go down on the mall on any Saturday and Sunday, and there's volleyball, and there's soccer, and there's baseball, there's cricket. I mean, any sport you play, Washington welcomes you. So it's a great, great city for athletics.
It is. So here we are, going back into the 80s. You've done your first triathlon. I heard you mention that you wanted to, that Hawaii did all three as well. So have you ever gone out to Kona and participated in Ironman Kona, Phil?
Yes, I was very fortunate in my training and my luck, and I entered into the 1990 Ironman triathlon in Hawaii as they take 50 people in a lottery, and I won one of those lottery spots. And so that year, I got to go and participate in the Ironman in Hawaii, and I finished. And that was one of the culminations of my career in athletics.
Wow. So taking me
Still
on
known as Ironman Phil.
I love it. So that's what I'm gonna call you for the rest of the show, Ironman Phil. So tell me, Ironman Phil, your experiences from 1983, from your first time doing a triathlon, take me back there if you can remember it, all the way to 1990 doing Kona.
Well, I got into it, and I was marathoning at the same time, training people a marathon, and we had a racing team at the store. We developed over the years, and we had actually a triathlon team. So we would go to races as the Fleet Feet triathlete racing team, and we would take maybe anywhere from 6 to 10 people to races for visibility and for participation and for competition. So over the years, we just did a lot of different things with our store and with athletics. I do want to mention that in the first years, and probably now, there weren't many African American or people of color participating in triathlons. I was a lot of times the only one who would be there. And of course, the inevitable question would come up by a reporter or someone who was there checking out, why are you the only, where are the other Black people? Why aren't they participating, etc. My answer then was generally that people didn't have that kind of time to train in 3 disciplines, and we didn't have a lot of accessibility to swimming pools early in life that we would be pretty good swimmers to take on open water. Over the years, there were a few more people coming into the sport. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't seen it around, but that was what happened at the beginning. And then I kept doing longer and longer races, and I was trained and I was ready to do an Ironman. And when I got that opportunity to go to Hawaii, the staff at the store and my family, that was my 50th year. So my birthday present was that I could do whatever races I wanted in that 50th year in 1990. And so I took full advantage of that and did a lot of training and a lot of racing, and people in the store were very good to allow me to do that.
Okay, so I'm doing some quick math here. So you are currently 82 years old?
I'll be 82 in September.
Wow. And you sound like you are in your 40s, so vibrant and young. Like, you sound so good. When we first, oh, go ahead.
I'm sitting at the gym. When you changed it to 3 o'clock today, I had to look at my clock and say, okay, I can get so much workout in, and then I'll go in a quiet room and do the interview. So that was very nice.
So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are listening and viewing this, when you see that little phone icon come up, this is an 82-year-old, well, 81 point whatever months, because he will be 82 in September, still at the gym working out, who started doing triathlons when he was 43 years old. So there's to show you, you can try at any age, and it will be the catalyst for you to keep going so that you can keep oiling your muscles, priming your body. Y'all, you can start at any time. There is no time like the present. So for those of you who are listening or viewing this for the first time and you're tri-curious, just do it. Hashtag shout out to Nike. Okay, moving forward. I just love it. I get so excited about this, just because what you said, Ironman Phil, is that the reporters were asking you, where are the other Black people? And your answers that were prominent in the 80s are still prominent here in 2022. There's a time issue, but definitely an accessibility issue. And now it's a financial challenge. It is an expensive sport. It's a very resource-rich sport, I should say, resource-rich sport. And so to see that those were some of the challenges in the 80s that a lot of Black people had to endure, those are still some of the same challenges almost 40 years later. And I'm just so grateful to be able to talk to you, to get to have an idea of what were some of the things that you had to endure. Did you by chance have any barriers that you had to overcome to enter into this sport?
No, I can't think of any barriers. I don't know if Shawn could think of any, but I didn't see any barriers. We were fortunate, and like I say, I have 3 sons, and we biked together from the time they could get on a bicycle. So they were ready for that. And then when they learned to swim and run, but no, I didn't see any barriers except, we had to travel. So we needed transportation. And like you say, we had to have bikes. We had to, get around, but no, we fit everything into our lifestyle. I mean, Fleet Feet, running a sports store is a lifestyle for us, our whole family.
I love
so it. we made time to do it.
I love it. So Shawn, I want to kind of come over into your lane a little bit, because you've been over there quiet. Like, this is not just the Ironman Phil show. I'm here too. So I got you. So for you, Shawn, you said that one of the challenges, you're an avid cyclist, you were a runner, but swimming was your barrier to entry. So talk about you learning how to swim. How did you learn how to swim? What did you do? And how did you overcome? And what type of races did you start doing?
So I just went to the pool. And so fortunately here in DC, we do have, when my brother Adrian was mayor, there was a tremendous investment in facilities in the city. And so we have wonderful, wonderful facilities here in Washington, DC. And so I picked a pool where it would be quiet, where it would be 25 yards across, and I could kind of go into a lane and stand up the whole time, so that if I needed to, stop in the middle of a lane, I wouldn't be in water that was deeper than my head. And I'd go 2 or 3 times a week and spend an hour just kind of splashing around. I read some books and looked at some video, and got some idea of the concepts, and I worked at it pretty steadily for a few years, and I was able to kind of go from being a horrible swimmer to being a bad swimmer.
Progress.
Which I was very proud of. That represented a big accomplishment for me. But I mean, I think the cool thing about triathlon is that, you know, most people are not going to be really proficient at all three sports. And so there's this sort of culture where, people root for each other because, like, if you're the fast swimmer, then you spend the whole day people passing you. And if you're, the slow swimmer, but the fast biker, then you're passing people on the bicycle. And so there's a humility that sort of facilitates. So yeah, I mean, it was fine. And, as far as access and limitations to access, I mean, I think when we started, there was no internet, there was no, so like you had to like get a license and you had to like fill out an application, which was probably in the back of a magazine somewhere. And, there were things like that. How do you get into this? You know what I mean? Well, you have to go and, find this magazine, and in the back of it, you'll find, oh, okay, and so there were those type of access issues, as well as equipment issues. But I think a lot of it is just sort of psychological, so you don't need the fancy equipment. I remember when my dad started out, he was cycling in his running shorts, and it was the same bicycle that he rode to work every day, and you just kind of go out there and you do it. And like it's not this thing where like there was one of the races here in DC, this guy like did the bike part on a bike share, what I mean? Like the little commuting city bikes, just to show that you could do it, just to show that, hey, I'm doing all three just like everybody else. And so, yeah, so I would like to, just kind of underscore that message that, don't worry about like all the fancy equipment and all that stuff. Don't let that be a barrier, just get out there and move your body. That's really what it's all about,
And I want to echo those sentiments. You do not need the fancy equipment. You can do this sport with whatever it is that you have. So please don't let that be a hindrance. And as you can see, Shawn is a little bit different. He actually taught himself to swim. There are different methods to teach yourself to swim these days. Get you somebody to help you, become efficient. But
that is good advice.
But I love that you didn't let that stop you. Like to see the fact that you went playing, and I can just imagine you, say for instance, in Marie Reed's pool, waddling in the water, making sure you stay on the light end, and then like, okay, I can stand up, so I'm good. All right, cool. Let me get back in and try. And you did that until you could swim a lap. And then you probably had to do that for your lap and a half until you could swim 2 laps and 3 laps, but you didn't allow that to hinder you. And I want to say, DC, I'm from Augusta, Georgia, and in Augusta, we had some really cool recreation centers when I was growing up. And so when I came here to DC to find out that they had a lot of natatoriums and outdoor pools and Olympic sized pools that you can literally go to, I was like, wow, this city is really amazing. Because you see this in the suburbs, but not necessarily in the city. And then the activities that they offer. So yes, DC is dope. And thank you to former Mayor Adrian Fenty for investing the sports, because he was the one who I think brought Nations Triathlon to the city, right?
That's right. That's right. So that first triathlon that was held in DC was during his administration. It was put on by Chuck Brodsky, and that race we had never swam in the Potomac River before. So we had a mile swim in the Potomac River, and then we rode along the Clara Barton Parkway and out Canal Road. And so it was just a beautiful backdrop, with the Kennedy Center and the Capitol and the White House all downtown, and you're swimming underneath Memorial Bridge, between Arlington Cemetery and the Lincoln Memorial. It was just really magical those times. I really enjoyed that race in particular. That was one of my favorites.
Well, maybe if we put this out into the atmosphere, maybe we can bring that back. Because I actually came here at the end of it, where a lot of the times the races were canceled because of the swim and the water. But the water is getting Kind of better. I mean, I would probably still be a little scared, but I would do it just to say that I swam in the Potomac and have done a triathlon in DC. So
Well,
hopefully we can get that
real
back.
talk, like if you're doing triathlon in America and you're doing open water swim, you don't want to, necessarily think about the water too much. You might think of it as you might think of it as a workout for your immune system, okay? But we,
Yeah.
but in our family, I don't know how many we've done over the years, probably 40, 50,
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, no one has ever gotten sick or anything like that. So
That's because you guys have
yeah.
built it up. You've built up your immune system with all the working out because you guys are a fit family. So if we've learned anything about fitness, if you're fit, you're healthy, your immune system is good, you can swim in any water and not get sick. Hashtag don't try it, but we're just saying. Wow. I don't even know. I'm just so like enamored by the stories. And I think that it's so important to share. What I want to go back to Ironman Phil. What was it like to cross the finish line in Kona in the 90s?
I can remember that very, very well. It was an amazing race. The atmosphere at Kona back then, and it may still be, I'm sure, is I had the feeling I was in an Olympic village. I had never seen that many athletes that good a shape. I know how many hours I spent training that year to get to that start. But when you looked over the beach and you saw the people training all week, because we got there a week early so that we could train on the course, we'd swim where the swim was and we'd bike and run where the courses were so we could familiarize ourselves. But it was the most amazing amount of athletes in that shape I'd ever seen in my life. And to participate with them was just, I mean, every person who was there was an Ironman. I mean, Iron Woman and Ironman. And there was one woman who was unsighted. So she swam the course with a person who had a leash on them so they could guide them through the swim. And then on the bike, they rode a two-person bike, and then another person ran with her in the marathon. I mean, there were people there that were just amazing from all over the world, and so it was an extremely wonderful atmosphere, and everybody was just happy to be there and participate. And it was a tough course. It's along the ocean. It's through the lava fields. On the bike, the temperatures on the lava field were up around 110 to 120 degrees, wow. No shade. And then the run, by the time I got to the run, the sun was setting, so I had to run at night, and a lot of other people also. But when you finish the race, every person that comes across the line gets this huge ovation. It's a party at the finish line until the last person comes in. So by the time the last person comes in, the place is just rocking like a party. It's a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere.
Wow. So at that time, you got to hear Mr. Mike Riley call your name across the finish line to say that you were an Ironman.
And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. It is.
Love. And so, Shawn, I know you've done some extensive distances as well. So can you tell us the different distances you've done throughout the years?
Sure. So I started off with sprint, and there's a club in Washington called the DC Tri Club, and they put on a sprint triathlon at East Potomac Park, which is a park we have here in Washington, where there's like a 5-kilometer loop around, around the park, around a peninsula that jets out into the Potomac River. And so, there's not a lot of traffic. There's an Olympic-sized pool, and then we did like, I think 400 meters in the pool, and then maybe 5 laps on the bike for a total of like 10 miles, and then just a 5K, one loop around on the run for a 5K. And so, it gave you a chance to kind of practice your transitions and, get a feel for the rhythm of the sport, and kind of sort out your equipment and that sort of thing. And then we were really blessed. We had, the 80s was really a sort of a 80s and early 90s was really like the original wave of triathlon, and it was sort of a golden age. And then we had sort of a resurgence, I would say, around 2010 to 2015 or so. And so that was really when I was doing the races. And so we had a number of great races that had legacy here in the Washington area: Columbia Triathlon and Reston Triathlon, as well as the new races like Nations Triathlon. And I went up and did New York City Triathlon. All of these are Olympic distance. New York, we swam in the Hudson, and that was amazing. The Hudson, has a very fast current. So the way the swim is point to point, and so you walk a mile up the Hudson from the park there, Riverside Park, and you go out on the pier, and like you hold, your wave goes out, and you go into the water, and you hold onto a rope until they blow the horn to start your wave, and then you let go, and then like the current just sort of washes you down. So like it was fantastic for me. It took 10 minutes off my swim time. And so like, I was able to get out of the water, so much fresher and that sort of thing. So so I love that race. And then it finishes in Central Park. And that was just super exciting, super fun race. And then the culmination for me was my 50th birthday. I raced Ironman Florida, which was a half. So it's a 70.3, which I think is the right distance, for the best distance for me. The swim is just a little bit longer. I think it's 1.2 miles versus 0.9 for the Olympic distance. So you only have to go like a quarter mile further, but then the bike is doubled, and so like that really sort of highlights my strength. And then I could actually run after racing pretty hard for 50 miles on the bicycle, 56 miles on the bicycle. I could actually still run, not fast, but I could run. And so most people were walking, and so that was a great distance for me. That was sort of a dream come true for me. Lance Armstrong raced the race that day, and I like to say that he was so intimidated by my presence that he had to go out and win outright. So yeah, Lance was like in his helicopter flying away as I was finishing. So yeah, that was a great thrill for me. He's a longtime hero of mine, and I never imagined that that's another great thing about triathlon is all out on the course at the same time, and so like you get to go out there and participate, and at least in your mind you're racing against the very best in the world. So that was a great 50th birthday present for me, and 45th, I think 45th. Yeah, so 2010. So it was 45th, my correction. But yeah, that was a great time.
So 45th in 2010, you were doing half Ironman Florida. So when did you start doing triathlons?
Well, it was kind of a thing for me in my 40s. So when I was about 40, so I would have started around 2005. Yeah.
Okay. So so you guys see the pattern here. We got Dad, who started when he was 43. We got Shawn, who started when he was 40. And obviously the younger brother, Adrian and Jesse, probably started at 12 and 13 years old.
Right.
But you
Right.
see that there's just there's no distance in terms of time when you can start. But I will say this, and I want to correlate this with parents. For those of you who are parents, children will mimic what they see you doing. So if they see you leading a healthy lifestyle, they're going to want to lead a healthy lifestyle, and they're going to want to mimic what they do, because again, you're their heroes. So you get out there and trying something, or it doesn't have to be, I would want you to try a triathlon, but whatever it is, if it's running, if it's walking, get out there and be active, because it's a generational wealth when you have that activity involved.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Now, let me ask you
Yes.
this. Oh, go ahead, Ironman Phil.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask this. By chance, in 2022, could we somehow get you guys back out there on the course again for another race? I mean, because Phil, you're at the gym right now. You're at the gym right now. So I know you're active. I mean, I would just say get the brothers together, make it a family affair. We'll have some cameras there monitoring everything. What do you say?
Well, I would say Adrian is out there. Adrian is still out there crushing it. He did a triathlon over in the last year in 2021, and like his time was fast. I think he was just off the podium in his age group, and like it was a fast time for Olympic distance. I think it was a Malibu triathlon or something like that. Speaking for myself, my dad, Ironman Phil has retired many times. I'm enjoying one of my retirements right now. So you have to ask him if he's ready to come out of retirement again.
Ironman Phil, are you ready?
Shawn is so correct when he says I retired many times. I did retire many times, and I no longer can run. My feet gave out a couple years ago, and so I stopped the running. I've turned more into a cyclist. When the temperature is above 45 degrees, I can go out and ride my bike. And but I think I would be glad to cheer anyone on who is out there doing it. Okay. So it would take a whole lot. I know I couldn't run, so I wouldn't even try that. So. But
how old were you? How old were you when you did your last one, Pop?
60? Boy, let's see.
60.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had to be at least 65.
So it would have been like maybe almost 70.
Yeah.
When you did like Nations, right?
Nations, yeah. Nations was one of my last. Columbia, I think, was my last.
Okay.
I think Columbia was my last. And
so you would have been at least upper 60s.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny thing about that one, that was another case where my boys were in the water the same time I was. What happens is they take the older triathletes and let them go first in the water. And so I got out of the water before they came out of the water, and I was on my bike. And then on the bike course, each one of them would pass me, and that would be such a relief when they came by me on their bikes and say, hey, Pop. And I would be so happy that they were out of the water. So, yeah.
No matter how many you do and how proficient a swimmer you are, and I've talked to really good swimmers about this. That water is real, okay? So, everybody is glad to get out of the water.
Everyone is glad to get out of the water. That is not a joke. The water is like, if you get past the water, you're like, I can do this. You're like, whoo, I can do this. So I am here for it. Okay, let me ask you this, or let me just say this. Ironman Phil, they have these new things called duathlons and relays. So I am not going to stop pushing. I am very persistent, and we're going to get you out there, because you can do a relay and then get one of the grandkids to do the run for you. And that's still doing.
They also have Aquavella.
Yes, they do have Aquavella. So we're going to figure out a way. That's going to be my mission.
All right. Well, you won't have to push too hard, but you can go ahead and ask me, and we'll see what happens. It's always nice to have another goal, and just being out with other athletes who have trained and are ready to put their medal out there. It's always fun. It's always fun. So I won't give you an absolute no. Let's put it that way.
Thank you.
And if I get out there, I'll drag some children with me, or maybe even grandchildren. I got those around too.
We're going to drag them all. It's going to be a family affair, and it's going to be so lovely. So I'm excited. So good. We gotta. Yes, I'm going to just go ahead and claim it as a yes. What I would like to do now is ask you some questions that I typically ask all of the guests, or just in some fashion, because I think it helps to paint the picture. Because again, we're talking about beginners, we're talking about getting started, and you all are like the OG family affair. Like, I don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, are there other families that you've seen over the course of the years, starting with you, Ironman Phil, that have been out there, or any that you can recall of seeing people racing with you that you remember seeing them be from a family perspective racing?
I can remember partners, as in husband and wives or wives and wives, etc. I don't remember many families. Shawn might have a better memory on that than I do, but not too many families, and certainly not families of color. So no, I don't remember that happening.
No, nothing comes to mind for me for that. No.
Okay.
I know I have friends who I've raced with on bicycle for many years, and you know, their children are coming through on the bicycle scene and that sort of thing. But I don't, I don't have a recollection of like a generation where, like, my parents' generation and then me, and then, my generation, and then maybe a generation to follow. No.
Okay. That's fair. That is very fair. So let me ask this, and I don't think I have yet. Why triathlon? Can both of you respond?
Well, for
What do you
me,
mean by what?
yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, go ahead, Shawn.
I was just gonna say again, for me, I had been racing club bicycle for 20 years, and bicycle was my first love, in terms of athletics. And when I found out that like people raced bicycles, I mean, it just blew my mind. So again, I mean, I just to touch on that idea of access, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up, I had no idea that these sports existed, that people did them, you know what I mean? So, just to introduce people to the idea that these things happen, I think is huge. But for me, when I got into triathlon, like I say, was looking for a way to kind of bump up my fitness. I was at an age where, my fitness was perhaps starting to decline a bit. And so I had to kind of change up my training habits. And so I was doing some more running as a cross training exercise. And then, I kind of saw my brother getting into the sport of triathlon, and it just looked fun. I liked the vibe of it. So it was just a new challenge for me, coming from something where, I had done it for long enough to where, it just sort of started to become a little bit, I knew what would happen almost before I left the house, so I needed a new challenge. I needed something, to kind of, I remember how fun it was in my early 40s to go to the pool and like be like, wow, like that, I'm really bad at that. Like, I haven't done something that I'm like this bad at in a long, long time. I had been sort of in my comfort zone for a long time. And so, like, it was kind of refreshing to sort of like be starting as a beginner in something new. So I just found that challenge very exciting at that time in my life. So yeah, that was what got me into it.
and you know what was really cool about what you said is that, as I lose my thought, because that happens sometimes too, you're like in midpoint, you had this thought. You said something, I'm trying to go back to it in my mind. You were really good at cycling. And technically, cycling is the longest distance. So you really were at an advantage, kind of, because you could make up so much ground with the cycling. Now, are you still cycling today?
Yes. I still cycle, and I will always cycle. And, just to that point on the racing, so when I was younger, I needed the races for motivation, to get me to go to the pool, or to get me to get out on my bicycle in the winter on a cold day, or, in bad weather and that sort of thing. But over the years, it really became a lifestyle. And it sort of sustains itself. And so like you just feel better. Your mental outlook, the way you feel physically. You can look around and see people who, uh, aren't as healthy, and you're like, wow, you know what I mean, like this has made a difference in my life. And so I don't really feel the need for the racing as a catalyst, as a organizing focal point anymore. It really has become a lifestyle for me. So yeah, I'm still riding. The most of the racing hasn't really happened over the last couple of years with the pandemic and all. And it sort of has felt like maybe a natural time for me to kind of step away from competition. But I will always ride my bicycle, as long as I'm physically able to. It's just, I remember the day I learned to ride a bicycle, and it was a love affair that I don't think will ever leave me. So
I love it. And Ironman Phil, what was instead of me asking you what was your why, what was your mindset back in the 80s that caused you to say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to thrive at it, continue to do it, and then propose to your why?
it's I think it's like Shawn says, been a lifestyle. I started riding a bike. I got my first bike when I was 12 years old. My two older brothers had a bike they shared, but they wouldn't share it with me, so I had to buy my own bike. And I got it for $5, third hand. And once I got on it, like Shawn says, it was magic. I mean, there's something about going back out for a ride even today that brings back that youth in you, that wind in your face, and you're in charge of the power of the bicycle. There's something special about it. I learned to swim when I was probably around 7. Our elementary school went to a pool in Buffalo, New York, and we went to the pool to learn how to swim. And running, I've been running since I could stand on my feet. So it was always in my blood. And then when I became a runner, and I loved running, running was my special feel. I mean, it always has been. And so when I got injured running so much, and I found out swimming was another thing to help keep that at a calmer level, and I swam more. And then picking up the bike, I used the bike I used to, before we opened the store, and when I worked, I biked back and forth to work every day. And then on weekends, I would just ride for fun. So all those three things were just always in my life. And then when I saw an opportunity to do them with hundreds of more people who are just out there to have fun also, I mean, it's a great sport. So it was just a natural thing for me to join in on that. And then to be able to do it with my children and now I've even run races with my grandchildren. So, that's a kind of a special thing when you're out in a neighborhood race or a race and you're running with the next generation and then the next generation. So that it's a good feeling.
That is. I'm so glad you both have magical bike stories. I remember if you ask my dad, he put me on a bike because that was one of our family activities. We would go bike riding, but we had this really massive hill in my neighborhood. And I think I fell one time off the bike. And I was like, my dad was like, she never got back on the bike again. And so now he's like, I don't get it. You fell off a bike and you didn't ride. And now you're back riding miles and can outride me because our family is competitive. So I tell you, I'm glad you guys had magical stories. But now I can say I've created my love affair with biking because there is something so calming and just invigorating about being on the bike, and peaceful at that, about being on the bike. Well, we've come to the part of the podcast where I kind of ask some fun questions. You don't have to think too long on it. You don't have to think too hard on it. But I am going to brag on you for a moment because this is something new that we started this season. So when I brag on you guys, then we're going to move into our rapid fire questions. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have listened, we have a legacy duo. We're missing 2 out of the legacy and Mama Fenty. However, I do have 2 Fentys with me, Shawn and Ironman Phil. Ironman Phil is one of the first African Americans to participate in triathlons back in the 80s. He also participated in Ironman in Kona in the 1990s. He is an avid cyclist, swimmer, and he is still working out because he's at the gym right now. And then we have Shawn Fenty, who it was an avid cyclist who turned to getting to triathlons at the age of 40. And he has done many races and concluded with Ironman Florida. And he's still an avid cyclist today. But one thing that I would like to share is that they have a family business in Adams Morgan called Fleet Feet Sports. So if you're in the area, go by there, get you some shoes, check them out. They are the best in town, so be sure to do that. Now, for our rapid fire questions, let's get into that. The first question is, what is your go-to workout? Go, Ironman Phil. Today, what's your go-to workout?
Bike ride.
Okay. And Shawn, what's your go-to bike ride?
Oh yeah, for sure, bike ride. It'd be like a hard training group bike ride. We call it Fight Club.
Oh, you're part of that Fight Club down at Haynes Point Day. Okay. And they be out there fighting, and I just watch them pass me like, ooh, yeah, they're doing it. Okay, I love it. So what, if you can think of this, when you were racing, what was your favorite post-workout food? Or post-race food?
You mean after?
Yes. What was your favorite post-race food? Yes.
I didn't eat before I raced. I didn't eat before I raced. Yeah. Post-race for the Ironman was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The last 5 miles, I just kept saying to myself when I was running at the end, peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and jelly. And I went right to the hotel and got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then went back to the finish line to cheer the other runners that coming in.
Love it. And Shawn, for you?
Can't go wrong with the peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly and a chocolate milk.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. Let me ask this because I ask a lot of people, because you've done the longer distances, pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break?
Oh, yeah, you get off the bike.
There's no timeouts. There's no timeouts in bike racing. They don't wait for you. You don't say, yeah, you guys wait for me. I gotta make a pit stop. Yeah, no. No, you gotta keep it moving.
I love it. We got two different answers, both with the same name. This has been a joy. It has been a sheer joy to have you guys. I am so honored. Thank you so much for coming on. Ironman Phil, I know you're at the gym, so we'll definitely have to get a picture of you. So I'll try to link up with you or Shawn to get a picture of you so that we can have it for the show. But thank you. Remember, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win. My name is Mashonda Shines, and I'm out. Peace. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win.